Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Halloween 3-Gun 2018, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the mighty General to finally test his mettle at a shooting competition. I've never actually shot in a shooting competition before. I, of course, heard my grandfather and his great exploits with the Compact Shooting Club, and evidently he was pretty good because, well, the shelves in his room are filled with many shooting trophies. And, well, over the years, I've kind of wanted to do it, but just have never really found a place to do it. Until last month, when my mother randomly discovered on Facebook a place called the Arms Room. It's a shooting range out in Dickinson, Texas, which is about an hour away from where I live, and they were going to be putting on a 3-gun competition. And well, as of this recording, I have just returned from it, and by the great Talos, was it amazing. I enjoyed myself immensely, and now we're going to take a look at the 3 stages. Now, like with In-Range TV, we are going to split this into 3 videos. This is, of course, going to be the introduction and stage 1, and stage 2 and 3 shall follow. Now, this is not your stereotypical 3-gun, or the idea of the stereotypical 3-gun. When I heard about 3-gun, it was like, oh, you're going to have all kinds of gamer guns and stuff like that. That was not the case here. The guns were all very intelligently designed, and the guns that I have are in no way gamer guns at all. Speaking of the firearms, let's take a look at them, shall we? For the rifle, we have the Sig Sauer M400. Why is it called an M400? Well, that's because, surprisingly enough, M4 and AR-15 are actually registered trademarks of Colt, so other companies cannot call their weapons M4 or AR-15. M400 does indeed sound a lot like M4, and that is, of course, an M forgery. The M4 carbine is the primary military rifle used by the U.S. Army. What differentiates a M forgery is the fact that you have a 16-inch barrel and it cannot go full auto. So this is not an assault rifle. This is just a rifle. No different than any other rifle. Now, this is a fairly basic AR-15. I've not done all that much customization to it. For those who don't know anything about firearms, AR-15s are more or less the PCs of the shooting world. Personal computers, essentially. For the PC, you can upgrade and change around components at a whim, unlike with Mac, where you cannot. The AR-15 can be modified in a wide variety of ways. Now, the M400 is a rifle that, out of the box, is pretty well accounted. You, of course, have a ambidextrous safety. No ambidextrous bolt release. You have to, of course, get an aftermarket one, but most ARs are not going to have ambidextrous bolt releases, but you do have an ambidextrous mag release. The build quality is quite simply excellent. The rifle here, of course, has Magpul furniture, a Magpul front end, a Magpul stock, and, of course, the Magpul Mo pistol grip that everyone loves so much. And, well, I can definitely say I can see why people love it. And, of course, I've got a Magpul backup iron sight that can co-witness, meaning I can look through the sight and see the red dot and the front sight, and that works fairly well, but at no time in this 3-gun competition do I actually deploy that. The red dot optic here is a BSA red dot. It's a fairly cheap red dot. It cost me about 25 bucks. It was half off of 50. As of this recording, it has worked quite well. When I first utilized it, I was just doing some 50-yard shooting, and sadly it shook itself apart, but that was nothing a little Loctite couldn't fix. There are 2 screws inside of here that holds it to the mount. You're going to need to remove those if you have one of these and Loctite them down, otherwise they will loosen. After this shoot today, it did not loosen at all. Now, this, of course, has a fixed front sight, which many lower-tier ARs do not have. Most times with a lower-tier AR, you're going to have a piece of 1913 rail where you can put a flip-up front sight. We, of course, still have the A2 birdcage. Works fairly well. And I don't really see any need to replace it anytime soon. This rifle, of course, also has button-cut rifling, which is not quite as durable as a Colt Hammer Forged. But for the amount of shooting that I do, it works well enough. Of course, we've got a USGI sling, which, you know, it's $5. Hey, it allows me to hold my rifle. It's not a sling I would recommend. Honestly, if you're getting a sling for your AR, get something a little better than this. It really likes to slip off your shoulder, and eventually I'm going to replace this with another Magpul product, which is going to be the Magpul Sling. Now let's take a look at the magazines we're going to be using today. This, of course, is a Magpul Gen 2. I don't have any Gen 3s because I just bought a bunch of Gen 2s, and they work fairly well. This is actually the only picture window Gen 2 that I have, and it came with the rifle itself. And it works well enough. I see no reason to get any other than Magpuls. I get that there are other manufacturers of magazines, but for me, Magpul works well enough. The ammo we're going to be using today is a 55 grain 223 round manufactured by Bernoulli. This also, of course, is a hollow point. Why hollow point, you may ask? Well, I got a 500 round case for 97 bucks. Oh, yes indeed, and that was an amazing deal to say the least. And it was so cheap mainly because this is commercial spec ammo. There's no sealant on the case necks nor on the primer pockets, which is fine for me, seeing as how I only intended to use this as practice ammo. And this ammo works quite well, and worked quite well during the competition. For the shotgun, we are of course taking a look at the Mossberg 500. I've already reviewed this shotgun. When testing with slugs, I was able to get quite good accuracy out to 50 yards. This red dot here is another one of my Chinese lottery optics. It only cost me about 20 bucks, and it has held up remarkably well when placed on this shotgun. Now, eagle-eyed viewers might recognize this from the SKS review, because this sight was actually on the SKS at one time, and it worked well there as well. This is a fairly basic Mossberg 500. It has a synthetic front end, but the stock is actually wood that I stained black because, as we all know, tactical is blactical. And of course we have a side saddle, which is actually quite useful to say the least, as you don't have to be digging in your pockets for extra shells. As for the sling, it's just a basic $5 rifle sling, which is actually far better than that USGI sling on the bloody AR. One thing that is kind of annoying about some of the earlier model Mossberg 500s is the fact that it doesn't have integral sling swivels, meaning you'll actually have to add some yourself. Last, but certainly not least, we of course have the Smith & Wesson M&P. This is an absolutely excellent pistol. I have had no problems with this thing whatsoever. I've already reviewed this one, and in the intervening time I've put about 800 rounds through it. Primarily 160 grain Winchester white box, and that's what I use today, and it works quite well. Now, at the end of the 3-gun competition, I use 180 grain reduced recoil Winchester Train and Defend. That is also some excellent ammo as well, as you can really feel the reduced recoil. And I do highly recommend that ammo if you want to get some good defensive ammo. Now, 40 is sometimes maligned by certain individuals. For whatever reason, some people like to say that 9mm is still superior, when in all reality, 9mm, 40, and 45 each are good in their own right, and each support their own niche on the caliber brackets. For me, I chose 40 because it works quite well as a compromise caliber. It's more powerful due to larger grain bullets than the 9mm, but it's not as big as the 45, meaning I can have what is effectively a more powerful pistol round in the same space as you could have a 9mm. Now, this has a 15 round mag, and there are many 9mm today that still use just 15 round mags. True, you can definitely hold more rounds in a 9mm, but to be perfectly honest, I would prefer 40 over 9mm. Does that mean I think 9mm is bad? No, it just means I happen to prefer 40 more than 9mm and 45. I guess you could kind of look at it like the console wars of old. Was the Super Nintendo better than the Sega Genesis, or was the Sega Genesis better than the Super Nintendo? Hard to say, but I choose TurboGrafx-16. Now, I'm going to be using a new holster. This, of course, is an Uncle Mike's Spectre holster. This is something I found buried in the holster box, growing hair. But after a little bit of Balisol to clean it up, and after discovering that you can run the belt around the holster, I found this to be a very comfortable concealed carry holster, And due to this, I've started to conceal carry this pistol, and I have to say, if you want a full-size concealed carry pistol, I would recommend the M&P 40, and if you don't like 40, you got the M&P 9, and if you don't like that, then you can always go for the M&P 45. And if you're a real try-hard, you could put a new recoil spring and a new barrel, and you could carry it 357 SIG. Now then, we're going to get on to the stages. I'm, of course, going to let the RO actually explain how each stage is going to work. So with that, let's head out to the range and see how much fun we can have.
Alright, this one's going to be rifle, pistol, and shotgun. So the scenario is, you're going to shoot the 5 targets here with the rifle. Obviously the headstones are hardened, so you have to shoot the heads, or there's a couple of body shots you can make. 2 shots each. You're going to advance to the table. You're either going to sling or put down your rifle, depending on the option. Your shotgun and pistol will either be staged-secured. Your pistol can be holstered if you want to draw from holster. You're going to pick up your shotgun, step over here. There's 6 targets. You're only going to have 4 rounds in the shotgun. So you're going to have to double up at least 1 round. The shotgun's going to malfunction. You're going to have to get your pistol out and get the last 4 targets. There are 4 targets, headshots on, or well, you can shoot anything. 2 shots each. All right, go ahead, load the rifle, make it ready. Make sure your optic's on, all that stuff. Give me a nod when you're ready. Shooters ready, stand by. You should have 2 more. One of those on run. All right, put the rifle down on the table. It's gonna be a lot easier for you. Push up over against the wall. It's easier to see them all. Safety off. Last one. Get the little one. You missed one. You're empty. You're empty. Come around here. Come around the table. All right. Pull your pistol out. 2 shots on each. You got 2 more. You got 2 more. 2 more. You missed the half body. All right. Go ahead and unload it. 7069.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was my first stage ever, and I gotta say, it turned out pretty good. There were a wide variety of things that I learned from this stage. Number 1, shooting long range is going to be really tough when I finally get around to it. This was only at an indoor range, and those cardboard targets were about 20 yards away, if that. And I gotta say, when looking through the optic on the AR-15, I could barely see them. They were just this sort of undefined mass of brown. Then, of course, we can see that I am, as my grandfather would say after the stage ended, a shotgun wizard. I gotta say, if you've got a 12-gauge shotgun, or just a shotgun in general, that red dot makes a difference, as I was definitely able to hit most of those bloody clays. I just happened to forget about that last one. That's one of the things that's going to happen when you compete for the first time, or just probably any time, is you are going to potentially make a mistake because you are so focused on finishing that stage in a decent amount of time. And I made sure to slow down so that I actually hit something, and I did indeed do so. The pistol stage went fairly well, but I of course missed that one target. The target the RO was mentioning was a little black target in between all the little brown cardboard targets. I didn't even actually see it the first time, and I don't think I saw it when I actually went to take a couple more shots. My overall time wasn't too bad, and the RO said after I finished that I had 13 misses, which I don't feel too bad about at all, because I'm glad I at least got some hits, because once again, you know, you had this massive brown cardboard. Overall, I really enjoyed that stage, and for my first stage ever, I had an amazing amount of fun, to say the least. And so, I'm Generallotz, wishing you good Mossberg 500 and good MP 40, and I shall see you in Stage 2! If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this awesome content.